sadhu nirvitaha samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangari sutayam vrishtam Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nivritaha Shri Gauranitai ki jai Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangari sutaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nirvitaha Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangari sutaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nirvitaha Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangari sutaya vrisham
Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nirvitaha
Samahurtam abhutushnim
Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nirvitaha Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangri sutaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nivritaha
Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangri sutaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nirvitaha
Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangri sutaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nirvitaha
Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangri sudaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nivritaha
Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishnangri sudaya vrisham Tivrena bhakti yogena Nimagna sadhu nivritaha
Samahurtam abhutushnim Krishna Gir Sudaya Bhusham Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagga Sadhu Nivrittaha
Samuhurtam abhutushnim
Samahurtam abhutushnim
Krishna Sudaya Prasham
Krishna Disudaya
Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Nimagna Sadhu Nirvritaha
Saha Uddhava Muhurtam, for a moment. Abhut became. Tushnim, dead silent. Krishna angry, the lotus feet of the Lord. Sudaya, by the nectar. Risham, well matured. Tivrena, by very strong. Bhakti Yogena, devotional service. Imagnaha, absorbed in. Sadhu, good. Nirvitaha, fully in love. Translation and purport given by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. For a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy. He appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. Purport: on the inquiry by Vidura about Krishna, Uddhava appeared to be awakened from slumber. He appeared to regret that he had forgotten the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he again remembered the lotus feet of the Lord and remembered all his transcendental loving service unto him. And by so doing, he felt the same ecstasy that he used to feel in the presence of the Lord. Because the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his remembrance and his personal presence. Thus Uddhava remained completely silent for a moment, but then he appeared to be going deeper and deeper into ecstasy. Feelings of ecstasy are displayed by highly advanced devotees of the Lord. There are 8 kinds of transcendental changes in the body: tears, shivering of the body, perspiration, restlessness, throbbing, choking of the throat, etc. And all were manifested by Uddhava in the presence of Vidura. Tanvir Maharaj, we would love to hear your thoughts on Srimad Bhagavatam.
Sometimes the devotee gets overcome by ecstatic emotions in devotional service, but he doesn't wish to experience it because the interest of the service. Daruka is described in the Nectar of Devotion as a devotee who had this happen to him. He was fanning the Lord, but in fanning the Lord he became overwhelmed with ecstasy, so he was wishing that the ecstasy would go away because it was interfering with his service. That gives us an idea how important devotional service is. This word Tivrena Bhakti Yogena is used in another place also, in the Bhagavatam. It means very strong devotional service. Tivrena, strong, Bhakti Yogena, yogena. If one performs devotional service very strongly, then he's guaranteed going back to the spiritual world. As the promise that Krishna gives, and as the promise that the spiritual master gives. The spiritual master is representing the Lord in this relationship between the Lord and the devotee. The spiritual master acts as the transparent via media.
Thank you, Dhanavir Maharaj. Om Jnana Turandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. For a moment he remained dead silent, and his body did not move. He became absorbed in the nectar of remembering the Lord's lotus feet in devotional ecstasy, and he appeared to be going increasingly deeper into that ecstasy. So, the devotee, he always wants to discuss about the Lord and his devotees. He always wants to be engaged in hearing about the Lord's transcendental glories and the glorification of the Lord's transcendental devotees. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Machchita Madgata Prana Bodhayantara Parasparam Katanyantas Chamam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees always dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So when Vidura asked Uddhava, "Can you tell me how is Krishna? How is Pradyumna, Samba, all the different people in the Yadu dynasty?" He was asking about. And he also asked about the different people in the Kuru dynasty too, right? Because he was asking about Kunti Devi. He was asking about all of these transcendental personalities. And before responding, Uddhava started thinking for a moment about what Krishna was like and what his devotees were doing, and like that. He became ecstatic by remembering the Lord. And it's said that when he went to think about the Lord, it was that almost as if time stopped, that time stood still, that the moment, it just seemed infinite at that time because he was so absorbed in the meditation of the Lord. And Prabhu was experiencing some ecstatic symptoms when he was meditating on the Lord. So he was actually showing his ecstasies, we see, because of the remembrance of the lordships. And this happens for very advanced devotees. And Maharaj, I think last Thursday when I gave class, he had mentioned that the devotee, he doesn't like to show his ecstatic symptoms. He tries to keep them hidden. And this is especially present in the presence of non-devotees. The devotee should never exhibit transcendental ecstasies in the presence of people who are non-devotees, or in the presence of envious people or people who are materially contaminated, because these people, they make offenses, and then it's not good for their spiritual progress. So the devotee, he wants the greatest good for all the living entities. So he may not put other people in a situation where they're liable to make an offense. But here in this case, we see that these are both devotees of the Lord, and Uddhava was indeed exhibiting his transcendental symptoms of ecstasy. Even in public circles amongst devotees of the Lord, the devotee should still try to control his ecstasies. But in an intimate exchange between devotees, or intimate devotional service scene, where the devotees are both practicing and absorbed in devotional ecstasy and devotional service, then sometimes the devotees may not be so on guard to control his ecstatic symptoms, because he knows, I can actually trust this person and he's not going to make an offense. So Maharaj gave us a nice example, and I also have thought of an example that I can think of when this happened. A very famous and exalted devotee named Devananda Pandit. He was a close associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and a very scholarly devotee. He would often give discourses on the Srimad Bhagavatam. He lived in Navadvip a while ago, and he was giving Bhagavatam class one day, and by the Lord's arrangement, Srivas Pandit Prabhu came and saw that Devananda Pandit Prabhu was giving Bhagavatam class. Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So Srivas, he stumbled upon this Bhagavatam class that Devananda Pandit was giving, and upon hearing him give the class, he became overwhelmed in ecstasy, and he was unable to keep his composure. He started rolling around on the ground in ecstasy and crying tears, shooting out of his eyes like torrents of rain. And the devotees that were present, some of the disciples of Devananda Pandit, they couldn't understand Srivas's symptoms of ecstasy, even though they were also, great devotees of the Lord. They were not able to understand, so they escorted him out of the Bhagavatam class because they didn't know who he was. And Devananda Pandit, who was giving class, he knew Srivas, and he knew that he was a very exalted devotee of the Lord. And when his disciples escorted him out, I believe he just carried on his discourse. But this incident, it came back up later that there is this offense made, that since these devotees didn't understand that Srivas was engrossed in ecstatic love of the Lord, they escorted him out. Mahaprabhu actually didn't let these devotees join in the Mahaprakash Leela because of this. He had mentioned something like this: you made an offense to Srivas. So these ecstatic symptoms, they're usually hidden. The devotee usually wants to hide them. But of course, sometimes, in terms of the spiritual master, very advanced devotee, sometimes he may actually intimately share that with the disciple because he actually trusts him to an extent, or he actually may feel this devotee needs to actually see this in order to gain his faith in Krishna consciousness, or something of this nature. So sometimes, the spiritual master may reveal to the disciple things like this, maybe to strengthen his faith or something of that nature. But so when Mahaprabhu was giving this Mahaprakash Lila, which for some people will describe that a bit, Mahaprabhu he usually didn't let his devotees like worship him as God and recognize him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although some of them knew, he was not in the mood of accepting service from them in that way most of the time. And during this time of the Mahaprakash Lila, they were in a private place, in a house, and he was allowing the devotees to worship him as God. So they put him up on a throne, and they were giving him party and all types of opulent gifts, and Mahaprabhu was reciprocating with all of the devotees in accordance with their desire, and he was giving them a bunch of benedictions. Whatever they desired, he would give. But of course, only the most exalted devotees of the Lord were actually able to enter into this pastime. So this is one of the instances that there may have been a subtle offense created like that, and he, in relation to not understanding an exalted devotee's Lord, exalted devotee of the Lord's ecstasy. So Krishna consciousness, it doesn't. It's not that it's like, are we Krishna conscious or not? Krishna conscious is a lifetime process of further developing your Krishna consciousness. So it's described that Uddhava is going further and further into ecstasy. Similarly, the devotee, he learns to develop his Krishna consciousness further and further, and he can go further and further into his meditations. The more time that he spends in devotional service, the more sincere he becomes, and the more absorbed he is able to get in his loving devotional service. The Lord will allow him to enter deeper and deeper into his transcendental meditations on the Lord. In Prabhupada, he talks about the different symptoms that come about, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he exhibited all of these symptoms when he was in Puri for the first time. He exhibited the symptoms for the first time when he was in Puri. And all of the symptoms that Prabhupada speaks on in the purport, in addition to many other very rare symptoms, were shown by Mahaprabhu in his ecstasies during his loving devotion that he was rendering to the Lord when he was here on earth. So generally when these devotees remember the Lord, they're so they get so much pleasure and so much satisfaction from hearing about the Lord that ecstatic things happen to them, like their hairs stand on end or tears flow from their eyes. It's explained that regular tears are warm. Tears that are from sadness or lamentation are usually warm. But when somebody is actually in ecstasy and tears come, they're cold. So this is a little detail about that. There's a difference in the tears, and sometimes they shoot out of the eyes. The tears, when the devotee is in ecstasy, and the hair, it will stand on end, just like somebody gets goosebumps. There's a word that's often used in our literature called horpilation. And one time Maharaj told me he doesn't like this word. He said goosebumps is better. It's kind of a strange word. to describe, Hare standing on end, isn't it? But and then also when this happens, when the devotees' hairs start to stand on end, and he has tears coming out of his eyes, it starts to be difficult for him to speak, and he'll start shaking. The tongue will start reverberating in a specific way where it makes it very difficult for him to speak. And sometimes he might become restless, and like Maharaj was saying, when the ecstatic symptoms, they will get in the way of the service when they happen. So the devotee, he prays for them not to come, or at least prays that if they do come, he can control them so he can continue in his service to the Lord. Because you become bewildered when this happens. There's some bewilderment too. So it's difficult to carry on with your service. Sometimes the Lord will be extra merciful with us and show us some extra mercy, and in this way we might get some shadow experience like this. Are there any questions about this verse? Checking on. I've thought of this before. Now Jagannath was wondering if the Gaur Arti is a description of Mahaprakash Leela. Now, I've thought of this before. From my understanding, Gaur Arti was revealed to Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his transcendental meditations while chanting, and it's like a pastime that he was seeing that was happening. I don't know if it's specifically. I don't think it's specifically Mahaprakash Leela, but I don't know. It could be. I haven't heard if it is or not. I don't think it is, though. Anyone else? All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srimad Prabhupada ki jai.